And we are live on another Monday night live stream. Welcome in. I see the chat is already got some people in it. Let's say hi to Joe and David. Welcome in. Yes, as Bob Carpenter coined this is point two, not version two. This is version point two. If you were here last week, it was basically version point one, alpha. I'm calling this more like beta. Got some of the bugs worked out in terms of the fonts, or I should say the lower thirds. Chat, basically. It's what I'm trying to say. You can see how it's working now. Basically, for those who didn't see my test stream, you basically, I had an issue with the frame rate. I'm using the Television Studio HD, and while it does lock on to the input frame rate, for some reason the OBS computer was locked onto 60. This is 59.94. It was flashing. A reboot of OBS fixed it. Of course, reboots always fix everything. So, we have that going for me. It looks like the chat is again broken. So let me refresh the page. There we go. David says he'll be assembling furniture while the stream goes on. Haley says hello. Hi, hun. Tony is in the house. Welcome, Tony. Again, we already said hi to Joe. He's here. Thank you all for joining. Hopefully, point two goes better than point one. So I have a couple things to talk about. I actually made an agenda and posted it in the comments below. The order doesn't matter to me. If you guys have one that sounds better for you, or we can just jump right in, it's up to you guys. Please let me know in the chat which one you would like to do first. Haley says the video doesn't look as clear as normal. Does it look normal to you? I did adjust some lighting. I did adjust some camera stuff. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you, hun, for that comment. Yeah, we're only doing 720p. Just sorry. I think I can do 1080p. I think. I have to try that actually. I mean, you know me and the resolution and whatnot. I don't think that's as important, especially for this shot. I mean, there's not much here to look at other than me, so you don't need to see me in 4K, that's for sure. Toro, welcome in, Toro. Good to see you. So, let's just go in my notes, and we'll start off with some, kind of some interesting topics that came up last week at work. The first one is IP delivery versus satellite delivery. Obviously, things are moving towards IP, but for the big events and forever, most things were available via satellite. So we have we'll just say special broadcast coming up. We have 3 of them actually. And the syndicator sent me an email the other day and saying, hey, we're switching from satellite to IP, and, you're going to get a free box for IP delivery. And basically, if you want redundancy, that's on you, and you have to pay for it. You have to rent this other box. And so the question was, well, what does it cost to get the redundant connection? And the answer is $3,000. Sorry, $1,000 per event. So it's going to cost us $3,000 to get a redundant connection for these 3 games. I can buy a satellite receiver for less than the $3,000, and I'll own that unit. If I rent the unit, it's $3,000 and I send it back. So where's the cost savings? Is it cost savings on the IP provider or the syndicator, I should say? Or is the cost savings on the station? because I think it's costing us more money, or at least in theory, it costs us more money. So is IP better? In this case, IP costs more. But yet everyone keeps saying IP is cheaper, the cloud's cheaper, everything's cheaper. Well, is it? Because so far, that's not been the case. Um, so, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of interesting. It was an interesting conversation to have this week. Like, everyone says IP's cheaper, and yet here's a case where it's not cheaper. It's not necessarily more reliable because I only have one feed. There's no backup opportunities unless I pay more money. So just thought that was kind of interesting. Jason's Lab says it's 1080p minimum. I'll see if I can switch it over. We'll just go with that. I make no promises. Welcome in, David. It's okay. I'm glad you made it. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my thought, but unfortunately, I don't get a say. My argument, basically, my argument to one of my coworkers is I could send a SAT truck to do these 3 events, and it'd be cheaper than renting their unit because I own the SAT truck. Not I personally, but the person and the truck already paid for, essentially. So I could send the SAT truck and have them broadcast a second feed to us for cheaper than the $1,000 that I'm paying someone else to do it. So, but I just hate that mantra, that IP is better, that cloud is better, that 1080p is better, 4K is better. Like everything is it doesn't have to be just because you say it is, or just because a salesperson says, "Oh, IP is the future." Okay, maybe it is, but at what cost? At what benefits? We lose redundancy by switching to this IP system unless we want to pay for it. So I guess the onus is on us. But before, I could have 2 different satellite dishes. I could have different receivers looking at the same feed. They used to offer 2 different satellite feeds. Now they only offer 1 IP stream. I hope there's redundancy on their end because this kind of makes me worried. Toro says the cloud is not cheaper, but it does offload risk. Well, yeah, no, I mean, there's benefits to it. And I'm not saying I don't like the idea of doing IP stuff. I do. Obviously, I'm a YouTube streamer, so like I understand and embracing digital, stuff. It's just like, what's the benefit? What's the cost analysis that you have to conduct and have? Is it really better? Who's making money off of this? Tony, you had a good stream. Was it Thursday? I think it was Thursday, about cutting the cord. And everyone's like, oh, I want to cut the cord. I want to save money. Well, then you cut the cord and you buy, let's say, YouTube TV or whatever. Then you buy Netflix. Then you got Prime. Oh, but then Disney Plus. And so, well, now you just paid more money than you had before. And what did you get? Did you save money? No, you probably spend more money, actually, to get what you want. Do you have more options? Probably. In terms of sheer numbers of programs that you can watch. But did you actually save money? No. If you want to save money, you have to do what they call cord shaving and cut channels. You have to lose something in order to gain access to that content because Disney, Paramount, NBC, all those companies still want to get paid for their content. They're going to charge you one way or the other. So while you could cord shave, is what I like to call it, basically switching to an online distributor that has a lower cost, basically lower infrastructure cost. So YouTube TV doesn't have to run wires to your house. Someone else did that for you. So they have a lower cost to their service because it's not requiring physical wires or satellites out in space. So they can charge you less, but they're still paying the same rates to Paramount, Disney, all those companies. They're still paying for that content. You're just getting less money because there's no physical infrastructure to support, or I should say less physical infrastructure to support, if that makes any sense. So let me go back to the chat. The cloud is a standard sucker draw. I mean, in a way, yeah. I mean, the best thing is I always say about the cloud is it's just someone else's computer. You're going to pay for it one way or the other. The difference, like in my satellite example, is if I buy a satellite receiver, I own it. I can use it again. If I'm paying for something else, I just rent it, and I think renting for the long term is bad. Joe wants 4K. Okay, Joe. Well, then I will send you my address. You can send me all the equipment to do 4K. I'm not going to invest in 4K. Sorry. David says his largest problem with the cloud is security. I mean, I understand it to a point. I think cloud can be secure, but you know, who owns the servers? Where is it at? How is their security? Do you trust them? I mean, Amazon's probably fine, but if you're not using Amazon, if you're using a local data center, how good are they? I mean, lots of things to think about. No, I'm not going 4K. Tony says he will go 4K, or he will be 4K at his next stream. So, I mean, if you want to watch a 4K broadcast, I'm sorry, I'm not your guy. I did see your review of, was it your review of this camera? I think you were talking about in your last one. I saw someone review this. I think it was you. Seems like an interesting camera. I may look into it. Or was it the E one that was the all-inclusive one? I think I might be confusing my stuff here for a second. But either way, I did actually start looking at cameras. So, any more comments or questions about that IP versus satellite? I mean, one thing they always say about, oh, a satellite's expensive. Well, it can be. It also could be cheap if you don't need a whole transponder, or if you only need like 9 megahertz, which is what we typically do. It's like $100 an hour, which, isn't crazy. Yeah, okay, that wasn't the one I was looking at then. That was not the one I was looking at. I think it was 500. It was, yeah, it was Sony, but it was like $500. Oh, I don't remember which one that was. Either way, I was looking for cameras. I might just go used too. I might just buy a used camera. Since I obviously don't need 4K. All right, so any questions on that before we move on? Of course, you can come back to it if you think of something later on. The other thing, so Tony says, what camera are you considering? Like I said, I think maybe it was the ZV-1. It was something Sony 1. I want to say it was $500. Like I said, it was like the all-inclusive. I think it had a lens on it. Now I'm really confusing my camera numbers. I am not a camera person. Like, I'm not a camera junkie. Sorry, I know there's a channel called Camera Junkie, but I am not, I am not really into cameras that much. I'm not into lighting. Like, those are the two things that when it comes to video technology. Hopefully my lighting is better. I actually have 2 lights. I have a key light over here, and I have a fill light over here, and they're off axis enough. They're not my glasses, which is awesome. My forehead is obviously a little shiny. I need to get that figured out, but I think it's better than last week. But I can do lighting, I can do cameras. I just don't get really into the specs and the nitty gritty of all that stuff. Joe says he's going to consider awarding a bonus JAU for higher resolution. Well, okay. Practical IT with Jeremy Leake is in the house. Like is in the house. Sorry, I always say Leak. It's Lake. I saw you got your internet fixed. I can't wait for your live stream to go down that rabbit hole about how that got fixed. Curious if you ever switched to pfSense, or what'd you choose for your router? Please let us know in the comments below. David says the lighting is good. Well, thank you. I did buy a light kit. Well, I had that upstairs as well. And then I actually found this light. I've had this one for a little bit. I think it was my first attempt at a light, and then this is my second attempt at a light. So so far we're looking good. And this one actually bothered me. It's the oh, what is it? Hold on. It is the GVM SD88. Sorry, 80D. SD80D. And I bought it after a recommendation from a YouTube video, and then it was like $200 with the softbox and this tripod and everything like that. So pretty good. And I like it. Definitely looks nice. And then they had one on sale the other day for $120, and I could have bought a second one for over here, but I didn't realize the sale only had it. The sale expired, and so I went to go buy it, and I was like, "Well, crap! It no longer is at the $70 off price. It was back to $200. So I did not get a second light, even though I am looking at a second light. Why does my YouTube channel, why does this browser keep crashing? Because I know you're talking and I don't see them. So let me refresh it again. Maybe it's because I have too many windows open. Hold on. This is not exactly a power laptop. Hold on, I gotta close this window here for a second. There we go. It's easier if I go up to the screen. Let me close some more of my programs. Maybe that's just too much stuff running. Whoa, lots of chat, and I'm way behind. But where did I leave off? Oh, lighting is good. David says he's learned so much about cameras that he never knew before. Tony, that's a good name. You should be JAU plus. I like that. Jeremy says it's only half fixed. Well, that sucks. Oh yeah, Prime Day is tomorrow. I will have to look, definitely. Thank you for that reminder. Joe says, when you get monetized, will you consider 4K? Yes. At that point, if I'm actually making money off this channel, then I would consider 4K. I still don't believe in it, probably wouldn't go to it necessarily, but I would definitely at least entertain that option and have that conversation because reasons. But I don't know. I guess I'm not a big 4K fan. I just don't understand it. And I've been seeing a lot of things about ATSC3 and the whole DRM on that stuff right now, and people wanting 4K, and it's like, okay, it's just not. I don't know. We've reached a point where like your eyes can't tell the difference. So unless you have like a 100-inch television and you're sitting 4 feet from it, you're probably not going to notice the difference. And you don't want to see me in 4K. I'm sorry, you just don't. Maybe you do. I just think that's kind of odd. So, but hey, let me close some more tabs because it's still not working right. The DRM on ATSC. Well, see, I'm torn because I'm not involved in ATSC3 at all, and I don't think the stations are doing it permanently. I think they're trying to prove a point, but I don't know for a fact because I'm not involved in those conversations. The ATSC3 stations around me are not encrypted. I don't know why certain stations are encrypted and certain stations are not. I think it might be a test. I don't know. To me, ATSC3 is not ready for launch. It's still in its testing phases. They are not, finalized on it. So it's like the early days of ATSC1. I mean, I remember watching ATSC1 when the networks didn't provide HD programming for half their schedule. So half of it was in HD and half of it wasn't. And if the station didn't switch correctly, you might see network bars for 4 hours because they would switch to the wrong feed and they weren't watching it. That's the way I look at ATSC3. I don't think anything's been settled on yet. Again, I'm not privy to anything, so I don't know. I'm just speaking about my own opinion here. I think they're just testing stuff. I think they're trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. There's going to be a component of ATSC that might be encrypted because they can offer you HBO or they can offer you ESPN as a sub-channel now instead of having to pay for it across the internet. I think that's good. I don't think all the channels will be encrypted. I don't think they'll be allowed to be that way. So I think people are kind of getting I don't know. I think people are getting worked up a little bit, maybe too early. Again, my opinion only, nothing else. So, um, you know, so again, why my chat is still, I don't know why this is doing this. This is weird. You're wrong about 4K. We use it to punch in post production and still have. Oh, no, no. There are uses for 4K. I'm not saying there's not. But to have a broadcast like 4K or to put this channel in 4K, what does that do for me? What does it do for the TV stations? It does nothing. Yes, you guys might be happy with it. And I'm sorry if you guys really want me to be in 4K. I just don't see the advantage of it. I don't see spending money on 4K when 1080p looks the same to me. Most of our audience wants to watch content on the phone. This thing doesn't care if it's 480p or 1080p or 4K. Most of the eyeballs are going to be here. It's just a fact. So, that's just my opinion. I believe that uploading 4K video helps improve the impressions. That would be interesting to see if that's true. I'd be interested to see that. Jason says he agrees. Jeremy says, oops. And my chat is getting cut off. My problem now is that if I connect my ThinkPad running Ubuntu directly to the modem, I can connect and the speeds are good. I've tried 3 different router firewalls and they won't grab an IP. I'm annoyed. Are you having a MAC address issue where once the cable modem or DSL modem sees a MAC address, it won't go to a different one until you reboot it? Because I've had that issue before. If I change my router to anything else, it doesn't matter if I plug my laptop in or if I plug a different router in, I have to reboot my cable modem and I have to unplug the power from it, not just simply reboot it. I have to actually remove the power from it. It has to forget that MAC address before it'll see anything else. If you haven't tried that, I would try that. Like physically unplug the cable, let it sit for 30 seconds, plug it back in with the new modem or new router plugged in so that it sees that. The other issue I ran into, which was a really stupid issue, was basically I had my cable modem plugged into a Cisco switch and then plugged into my router. And the Cisco switch, when Spectrum Cable got rid of the 5 MAC addresses or 5 IP addresses you could have, because that was a thing at one point, they went down to 1. When you rebooted the modem or the switch, the modem would see the Cisco MAC address and then basically try to give the Cisco an IP address, and then my router would never get an IP address. It just couldn't get one because it was handing out the first IP address to the Cisco switch that I was plugged into. Even though I told the Cisco switch not to claim an IP address, I gave it a static one on a different VLAN. It, for some reason, was trying to discover or do like Cisco discovery protocol, and it was grabbing an IP address from the modem and basically just taking over. And it was like it just didn't want to, it didn't want to do it. So that's interesting. If maybe you want to try that. David says it's just been much harder to go 4K for a live stream. That I believe. Toro says you're fine at 1080p for your hobby. You do not need to see my pores. Sorry. Bob Carpenter is in the house. Sorry I was late. You got a new pfSense router. Please tell us more. I love pfSense. In case you guys didn't know, I love pfSense. I think it's great. Yeah, do an IP config release. Jeremy says you rebooted it many times this week. Bob Carpenter asked, do you have Netgear? Yeah, MAC addresses issues are very ISP dependent. I've kind of got that. Like I said, I had my issue, and I was like, this has never been an issue before, and then all of a sudden it became an issue. So they obviously changed some stuff. I don't doubt that Verizon is more touchy. I don't doubt that for a second. Bob says he's got the X710TL. I don't even know what that is. Is that a MikroTik? Or no, you said your PSNs. What is that? Anyway. Um, oh, it's a net. Okay, gotcha. Intelnik. New Intelnik. There you go. Okay. 10 gig on your PF Sense, huh? Alrighty. So, looks like 7 of you are here. Only 3 likes, so please hit the like button. So let's go to topic number 2, which is, let me go back to my notes. Fiber cut. Oops, got to take the chat off the air. So I'm sitting in my office on Friday. It's, 3 o'clock-ish. And my phone rings, and it's a cable company, and they're like, hey, we lost your signal. And I'm like, okay. So first thing I do is I grab my remote TV, my remote control, flip over to my TV, make sure I'm watching off air, and I'm like, hey, we're broadcasting. I'm not sure what your issue is. And the cable company's like, we lost your feed. And I'm like, well, what feed are you talking about? And they're like, the fiber feed. And I'm like, well, works fine here. And then I remembered what I saw in the morning outside. When I pulled in the morning, there were trucks outside digging up in the part of the road or part of the sidewalk. And I'm like, oh God, did they cut the fiber? So we still had internet. We did not rely on this fiber for internet, but we fed cable via this fiber. So I walk outside and I'm like, hey, any chance you guys, cut a fiber? And the guys were like, we didn't, but they did. And I looked over and I saw 8 cable TV trucks parked across the street. And let me I think if I do this correctly, you guys will see it. So I walked over and I saw this shot. And so here they are digging up around this pole, and you can see some of the fiber there hanging. I think that was one of the cut ones that they were, no, that was one of the new ones that they were running. And then I was like, well, great. What happened? So they cut a 48 strand and a 12 strand. So it was not a good day. So then I go outside later on that day. Actually, I was in the process of leaving and saw this parked out front. So they were definitely spending some time fixing the fiber. In fact, it was they were there from about 1 p.m. until I left at 8 or 8:30. I actually stayed late for a different issue, and we can talk about that for a second. And they were still there, and they were thinking they were working till at least midnight. So kind of interesting. They actually were like having to move the cable out of the street and into the right of way because apparently they're going to do some work in the street next year, and so they had to move their stuff. So got to experience another fiber delivery, which, back to the first story I told you guys about, like, yes, we have redundancy, but like if you can cut fiber, well, then I could lose my internet feed, which means I could lose my big game or whatever it is because you didn't offer me redundancy in terms of satellite. Satellite, there's one thing in between, and if the problem happens, you switch to the other satellite. There's a spider here. Sorry about that. So, like, here we are, another example of fiber being cut. I lost my internet here because fiber was cut one time miles and miles away. Toro says the switch behavior is indeed a real thing. I used to split my MAC address. Yep, I had to do that before. I liked Tony's video on Andrew's masquerading. Yeah, I remember having to lock. I think I had the same MAC address entered into a router for, oh God, 3 or 4 years at my old place. Just to make, just because I didn't want to lose anything, I didn't want to call them. It was actually easier just to change the MAC address than it was to call them and say, can you reset this or can you update my account? So up 7 current viewers, 7 likes. Thank you very much. So yeah, so we did the fiber cut story. Just thought that was interesting. The IP delivery. I was gonna talk about mix minus settings, but I don't know if I am not gonna unless you really want to talk about mix minus. So as you guys know, I just switched to over this fly pack. It has a Television Studio HD. I need to get that off the air. Hold on a second. So I switched over to the Television Studio HD, and I just realized it actually has the ability to do mix minus. I didn't think any Blackmagic switchers had the ability to actually create a mix minus feed, and apparently they do, which is pretty cool. I think Blackmagic is making some serious advancements in their switchers, and including the switchers that don't have 4K, like the Constellation series. There's 3 of the brand new switchers, no 4K. But they support mix minus now. So I thought that was interesting that you could have the switcher generate mix minus for certain inputs. It is one thing I was hoping to try, but I ran out of time. I actually was hoping to set up a whole separate feed and just have it without music. And now that I'm looking through my notes, I forgot to do that. But it's okay. I was outside enjoying the pool earlier. It's a very nice day here, and so I was out enjoying the pool instead of setting up. My bad. I should have done that. The one thing I was kind of playing around with though, and it would technically work if I wanted it to, but it doesn't really need to work right now, is this box. If you have an ATEM switcher, this is a GPI and tally interface. We bought this a long time ago, and I just brought it home to try it because we've never actually tried it, and it is pretty cool. It allows you to get tally and GPI. I think it does 8 tallies. Yeah, it does 8 tallies and 8 GPIs. So if you want to get actual tally out of a switcher or trigger your switcher, with some kind of physical buttons, you can. This is actually pretty cool. It took me once I did the firmware update, it took me 5 minutes to get this thing working, including plugging it in. The firmware update took the most time because the current version of the stuff didn't want to update it. So I had to go back a version to version 8 of the Blackmagic switcher software. Then it did the firmware update, and then I could go back to 9, and it worked. So I thought that was interesting. But I think this box is pretty cool. To me, one of the things that everything lacks, especially vMix, the one thing vMix especially lacks is tally. I do not want to have to use a phone, stuck to the top of a camera and calling up a web page to see tally. I want it to be in the camera and working, just natively in the camera. I don't want to have to set up Wi-Fi phones and all this other stuff. So if I can have a device that can generate tally and I can plug it into cameras and get tally, that's great. vMix, there's some workarounds or some things that vMix does that in theory get you tally, but I don't know. I'm not a fan. So just thought that was interesting. If you guys want to know more about this, let me know. Otoro says, worst day ever. A cut 768 pair fiber East Coast Florida. It was down for 6 days. Took out all 3 of our core network late. Ooh. Took out all 3 of our core networks. That that is definitely a bad day. Oh, Eric, welcome in. Yes, the pool takes priority on an 88-degree day. Yes, the pool definitely takes. And actually, funny story about that. I've been thinking about the pool all day long because on Friday, during an audio issue, um, hold on, let me jump back to this real quick. Uh, am I going to convert to Blackmagic? I've always wanted to use Blackmagic for broadcasting. I'm using Blackmagic for this, but at the university, I've always wanted to do Blackmagic. The issue is uh, the replay and graphics support for what we need. It's more important to get graphics and replay than it is to have tally. Uh, but it's always been my thing to. I'd love to do tally or get tally working with vmix. Um, and I'd love to have them learn replay, but there's just not enough operators to actually learn replay. We have a dedicated three play, not replay, three play, the number three play from New Tech. It's a $28,000 replay system. We don't use it. We haven't used it for years because there's no students to learn it. vmix replay is built in, and I can almost automate it. It's easier to do it in vmix. We just lose tally. Now I want tally because I'm a stickler for that kind of stuff, but the students don't care. I think it'd help them, but the students don't know anything, so they don't know any better than getting tally. So I've always wanted to have tally and wanted to use Blackmagic, but in our current setup, vmix works better. Probably not as big as you would think. Could be wrong. Sure, it's not small, but I don't think it's as big as you would think. Like I had some 64 the other day, 64, and it was just like the size of my finger. Yeah, all the armor was cut through. I will say it's interesting. I'm on a thread at work, and we now see all the incident reports across the country. I've seen three cut fibers in the last, I would say, month or two, and they have pictures like, here's where it was cut. Toro says it was due to construction. $1,700 fibers is 1 inch. Interesting. Okay, so let's jump back to Eric and the pool comment. So last Friday, I got paged that we didn't have certain audio feeds into the intercom system. Now we use a Dante-based audio board, and we have boxes located throughout the facility that will cut the cable down, or sorry, convert from Dante to analog for like our intercom, which is still analog. The microphones and stuff like that are still analog. So we have several of these stage boxes, and hold on a second. Um, so, um, so I had to go fix this audio feed. So like we're getting audio coming in, and or we're not getting any audio coming from this box. So I go through the process like, okay, well, is it this? Is it this? Let's try this. Let's reboot this. So of course we're in a newscast. So the last thing I can do is reboot the audio board in the middle of a newscast. So I had to wait till 6:30, rebooted the newscast, reboot the audio board. It took me a while. Didn't come back up, which was really scary when your audio board doesn't come back up and you're 10 minutes till a newscast. So I rebooted it again, and this time it came back up. I was so thankful. Um, I was like, great, we're back, and still no audio from these certain feeds. I was like, come on. So I was like, well, what else could it be? We rebooted that, rebooted. Oh, wait, we forgot that one box. So we went back, rebooted that. That didn't fix it either. So I'm like, okay, we rebooted literally the entire system. The brains, the surface, the stage box, the audio breakout box, the digital converter. Like we rebooted everything. And didn't work. So we're like, well, now what could it be? So I started thinking to an issue we had a while back where we lost one of the cards. So these stage boxes are basically, I don't know, I don't think good to show you. But they're basically 6 RU, 7 RU, maybe 8. I forget exactly. Tall, and they got cards inside for all the different inputs and outputs. And so basically, I'm like, well, maybe it's a card issue. So I look at the outputs. We have 3 outputs. There's 4 outputs. We're only using 3. And so I was like, maybe that's what it is. So we move the connector over to the other one, go on the audio board, reprogram it, and it works. I'm like, well, great. We're back up and running, but we've lost a card. Whatever, we'll order a new card. It happens. While I was doing this, I realized the audio room was crazy hot, like 77 degrees, very humid. I'm like, why is it so warm in here? So I realized the air conditioning was bad. So I went back, looked at the air conditioning unit. It was set for 70 degrees, but it wasn't doing it right. Kind of played around with it, lowered the temperature, thought maybe there's some issues. Our air conditioning setup is really weird and old. So like sometimes things just don't work right. And it was already 8:30 at night. So I was like, I'm done. I'm going home. I lowered the thermostat, hoped that was going to fix it. I come in this morning to an email. Hey, it's awfully warm in the control room. So I walk in the control room. It's hot, if not hotter than it was on Friday. And I'm like, well, this isn't good. So, start looking into that issue. Like, okay, what could it be? It could be this, it could be that. Well, I'm not an HVAC person. But let me look at some stuff. So I realized that the condensate pump is not running. It's full of water. So, realized that switch was turned off. Like the power to had been shut off. So I turned it on, air conditioning fired up, and I was like, great. And I was like, but it's not cold. It's still not cold. So I walk outside and I discover that the condenser outside, you can't see the fins. It's so caked in dirt that you cannot see the fins. And there are literally plants growing up on the outside of this condenser unit. And I'm like, okay, hold on. I don't know how long this has been this way, but obviously it hasn't been serviced in quite some time. No wonder it's not getting cold. So this morning I took a hose out there. Actually, I took 4 hoses, combined them all together because there was no water anywhere nearby. So I had to take all these hoses, hook them together, cleaned out this condenser, was sweating like crazy because it's 80 plus degrees outside and humid. And got the air conditioning thing cleaned out, got the condensate pump draining, and next thing you know, the control room is now 68 degrees. So I was very happy to come home and jump in a pool because my office is not 68 degrees. It's about 73. I'm at the end of the HVAC system, so I don't get very much cooling. And I've been outside and, all that stuff. So yes, to your point, the pool takes priority. Go ahead. Yeah, I wouldn't say they don't know anything, but the students don't know what they don't know. Eric, fiber-seeking backhoes. Yes, that's definitely a thing. I think Bob's talking about something else. Toro says, my nemesis. That's funny. That was been my issue recently. Definitely some of that. Which actually scared me because I'm like, okay, so if the road is being redone next year and I have 2 brand new fibers that go under the road that are my internet connection, does that mean that next year I lose internet? And so I was very worried that we just ran brand new fiber underneath this road that's going to get redone next year. Yes, everyone hit the like button. I think we are doing pretty good in that count. More likes than viewers. We lost a viewer. Who left? Bob talking about the cable. Yeah, you can't see the thing. So didn't need to call an HVAC technician today. Usually we call the HVAC company, but today I was like, I think I can fix this, and I was able to. So that was a win for me. Alrighty, so the next thing on here was a war story. Um, so you guys have all, oops, let me get rid of that. You guys seem to like my war stories episode I did a while back, so I was reminded one of today, or reminded one, yeah. So let me call up my notes. I actually made notes, so I get this right. So hold on a second. So I love the Stream Deck, by the way, with the automated buttons that via companion. Awesome tool. So uh, it involves this cable, and we'll get to that in a second. So this was, I don't know, years ago. I'm guessing 5-ish, 6 years ago. The station had we'll just say a big game. So the big game was in about 18 hours. So this was about 1 o'clock in the morning, give or take, and all of a sudden the station started having issues on air, like visible, audible issues. Like you could see there was problems with the signal, and it was like, well, what's going on with this? And so the master control operator, started looking around and trying to figure out, well, what could be causing this massive breakup on air? Everything's fine. The transmitter's fine. The signal going out looks fine, except that off air, it's crap. It's not watchable. So, being the good engineer that he is, he went and started looking into it, and he basically kind of said, "Can I make it any worse, or can I make it better?" And so he started poking around, and he figured out that if he pushed a button or put a patch in, that he could he could solve the problem. And so, Super Bowl Sunday coming up, big game. We got to get this ready. And so he put a patch in and figured out a way to solve the issue. But he called the boss, which was not me at the time. And he called the boss and he said, "Hey, I just did this, but you may want to come check this out." So he basically came in and they looked it over, and then what they had realized, what they had done basically was that they had bypassed the primary encoder because it was acting up. They put the backup on the air. So we do the big game, and there's no problems, luckily, and we go through the whole thing so great. So Monday morning, my former boss and one of the technicians came in and started looking at it, and they figured out how to fix. Sorry, there's another bug flying around. So they kind of looked at this issue, and they got it 95% there. Like they got it almost fixed, but they were missing something. It was a certain setting, and so I got involved and figured out what the issue was, and so I fixed the setting. And to the primary encoder. So we have two encoders that make the signal that you watch at home. So we were on the backup encoder. The primary encoder had the audio issue. We fixed that. And I said, "Hey, we're good now. Let's pull that patch cable and go back on the primary encoder." And he was like, "No." And I'm like, No, like we're good. We fixed the issue." For some reason, he just didn't want to. He was like, "No, we're not going back on it." And I said, "So we're going to leave the backup on the air without the automatic transfer switch. So there's no way to fail over automatically if we have a problem. It's going to require manual intervention." And basically the answer was yes. And I'm like, well, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So we're going to stay on our backup encoder even though we have a functioning primary encoder. He's like, yes. I'm like, okay, fine. So fast forward to the end of the year, and he no longer works at the station. So he literally, on his last day, he was like, see everybody later. Stop, have fun. Hopefully talk to you in the future. So he's in his car, essentially. This is the way I remember it. Now, it may not be exactly this way, but this is the way I remember it. He's literally in his car saying goodbye. He drives away, And I walk down the hall, I grab this cable, and I yank it right out of the freaking patch panel and put the primary encoder back on the air. And to nobody's shock, it worked. Worked flawlessly. So to remember this story and this particular individual, I have kept this patch cable, and it was hanging in my office until today. So this is the memorial patch cable that literally was in place for 9 months. Actually, no, 10 months, give or take, for no good reason. Just thought I'd share that little story about how with good intentions you can have problems because you're not thinking it through, and you need to test things, and you need to develop plans and fall back on things. You just can't leave patch cables in place. You have to fix the issue. And if someone's fixed the issue, you test it, and then you go back on the system. You go back to the system that you have in place, which is primary and secondary encoders with an automatic failover switch. So this is the cable. This was the story that reminded me today, and so I brought it home. It'll go back to the office. I actually want to get it on a plaque. Like, I want to make a plaque or do something like to celebrate this because, you know, while he was a good guy, the mindset that he had about this particular thing was just so weird and so backwards to me that I have to keep this. I don't know what else to say, you know? So, Bob, we actually do. What I realized today is that this air conditioning is not on the maintenance plan that the rest of them are on. It is the often overlooked one that is behind a different wall that no one sees. No one knows it's there until it doesn't work. So we're adding this one to the regular maintenance plan. So David says nothing beats a good troubleshooting story. Yes. So the engineer that put this patch in place wrote, "Do not pull this patch," and left it there because it was the big game. So it was a "do not pull this patch." Doesn't say forever. It just says "do not pull this patch." So if you're pulling the patch, you know why you are. Only we left it in place, and I would walk past this several times a week, and it would just bug me because I'm like, this does not need to be in place. This should not be here. I fixed the issue. Why can we not go back on the primary encoder, which is better? Why can we not go on this primary encoder because I fixed it? I don't understand what the issue was. So, yeah, so just thought that I would share that. That's my war story for the day. And that comes to my list of topics. So sorry, there's one more. It's a visual. So in talking today to somebody, we were talking about how the office is at the end of the run in a cable line, and that reception is not always the best. So I recanted a story similar, like a war story, but a lot less interesting, I guess. But it was interesting from an engineering standpoint. So when I moved into this office like 7 years ago, we couldn't get reception via our master antenna system. Like, it just didn't work. I was like, why does this not work? Why can I not get over-the-air television at a TV station in an office? Like, this is frustrating. And so one night I took the cover off of this wall plate, and I discovered the issue. This is a picture of the wall plate that was on the wall that was being fed by the antenna. That copper thing there is not connected to anything. Like, I mean, it's on that little bus thing. And then there's a capacitor connecting the center pin to the thing. Like, yeah, that's a capacitor, Eric. The guy I asked, the one of the other engineers that I showed this to and basically asked his opinion, said he had never seen this before and he had no idea what this was or how this ever worked. And I'm right there with him. I have no idea what this is and how this ever worked. So we cut the cable, we put a regular F connector on it and a wall plate, and I plugged the TV in, and magically we had off air TV again. So if you ever seen this or you have any idea what this is, I would be very curious to know how, if ever, this thing worked. I don't get it. It makes no sense to me. Made no sense to my engineer who was with me. He is a ham radio operator. He knows way more about RF than I do. And yet, just, yeah. So if you've got any ideas, I would love to hear them. So, yeah, is that a capacitor? Yeah, some kind of inductance. Yeah, I don't know. Very interesting. I do not know. I've kept this wall plate in my office because, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. It goes back to antenna TV though, because on the other side of this thing right here, it says rotor plug knockout behind this label. So it goes back to the day where we had, rotors on antennas. Although I guess that still is a thing. I don't, it's antenna's an antenna. That's a whole different rant. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. I wanted to share that little thing. It was just made me really curious, and I've always kept it. So I have a whole thing of odd things that I found over the years. Wow, 11 likes. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. So one of the things I was actually thinking about, speaking of keeping things, is I have every lanyard from any event I've ever worked, whether it was a small event, whether it was a big event, I've kept it. I have a whole stack of them. I have some at work and I have some here. I was actually thinking about getting like pegboards or some kind of thing and actually hanging all the paint, all the things behind me as kind of a backdrop. Curious if you guys think that'd be a good idea, or if you guys have any decoration ideas for the wall. It's just literally a blank wall right now. There's nothing on it. I do kind of want to get some lights and maybe change, put some lights on the wall, so at least there's some splash of color. Don't know. I'm just looking for ideas. Hey, Brian, welcome in. Glad you can make it. Oh, it had to be some sort of, yeah, I'm guessing filter, but let's go back to that picture. I just don't know how it ever worked. Like, I mean, in theory, the copper conductor is pinched across to the next cable, but it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So if you, I don't know, it's just one of those things. So Brian says that's a great idea. Yes, Eric says, given the big shows that you've worked, lanyards are a great idea. Yeah, I thought about it. I saw on Etsy, I think it was Etsy, they had a sign that said TV Life, and then it had places to hang your lanyards. So I'm going to probably look that back up again. That might be a cool thing to put over one of my shoulders. Actually, I want to get two because in my new office at work, there's a whole white wall similar to this over my one shoulder, and I figured it'd be a great place to put that at work so that every Zoom meeting I see, people can see that. um, it was either that or hang a TV, because I thought about putting a TV back here as a visual, like, backdrop, whether I could, you know, make it one of the aux outs on the TV studio. I could make an aux out, and I could route a monitor graphic or whatever. Thought about the same thing at work, actually, which is kind of weird. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. I don't want to burn a TV just for that, but I might do that for here. Maybe do the TV and the lanyards. I don't know. Just kind of thinking about that. We've hit 1 JAU, so we're doing good there. I really need to figure out why Chrome keeps crashing. This is bothering me. Yes, the more disturbing, the more you look at it. See, this is what I kept looking. I kept doing too for all those times. We've hit 1 JAU. Thank you. David says, way back in my first software job, I had a map on my wall with different color pins of the cities where I had traveled to. Oh, that's a good idea. Oops, sorry about that. I don't travel that much, like in terms. So I wouldn't. But the lanyard idea, definitely think the lanyard idea is gonna probably do something like that. You had 9 pins for DC. Yeah, I can imagine. I think I put a black dot on the pin to indicate, and that's smart. That's funny. So, alrighty. Well, I think unless you guys have any more questions or comments, I'm gonna probably wrap this up. I appreciate you all being here. I hope you all enjoyed this stream. Looks like there are 8 of you left, which is great. 11 likes. I appreciate that. I did actually get an email the other day, actually it might have been today, from Google talking about qualifying with their lower threshold. Getting early access to the partner program. Check eligibility. I'm curious if I don't think I'm eligible for this yet. This would have told me that if that was the case. Oh, okay. So the early access program is 500 subs, which I have. Upload at least 3 videos, which I have. But I am short on public watch hours. I'm only at 1,932 public watch hours. I need 3,000. So I definitely need to get at least another 1,000 plus watch hours. So I thought live streaming would help that because people watch longer on live streams than I do videos. You know, hopefully we'll get there. Yes, I am getting very close. On my 4-way, I think it was, last I checked. Yeah, I'm 4 subscribers away from 900. Sorry, I'm 104 subscribers away from 1,000. But apparently that doesn't matter anymore because you can get it at 500. But as Eric points out, the view hours are still pretty high. They did not lower that. So that's why I truly do appreciate you guys being here. Looks like if I'm looking at my studio dashboard that the average view duration has been 26 minutes. So that's very helpful. Hopefully that does count towards the watch hours. I forget when I started live streaming. Can I go back and figure that out? Because I'm curious if this will just... When was my first live stream? Oh, it's almost been a year since my first standalone live stream. That. So my getting started with Rivendell video got almost 2,000 views on it. I know that it's one of my most watched videos, so I should probably go revisit Rivendell. That was pretty popular. Of my live streams, that's my most popular live stream, it looks like, ever, by far. So I might have to go revisit that idea. If there are topics that you would love to see, I would love to know. I would really, like I said, I would love to know what you guys want to see, other than just hanging out and telling stories. I mean, that's pretty cool. I do like that. Love telling stories. Um, all right, so it says it's back. Am I back? Can anybody hear me? I think this is probably the most accurate so far. Um, oh, okay, I'm back. Well, that was interesting. Practical IT. Yeah, Jay jinxed himself with that cable, apparently. Although I think I was talking about what was the last thing you guys heard? Because I kept talking for a little bit. Um, what was the last thing I was talking about? Was it the servers in the back room, or was it my previous live streams? Oh, future ideas and topics. Okay, interesting. That's very interesting. I'm looking at my WAN traffic graphs, and there was nothing. So the hold on a second. Let me go back to my other window. I was scrambling to call up stuff. It's fun to do some things. Um, yeah, live streams. So yeah, my PF Sense traffic graph showed nothing outbound when I called it up. So the encoder decided to just completely flake out after an hour and 10 minutes. Um, I use a U-Ray box because they're cheap, and well, I guess I got burned. Um, interesting, very interesting. Hmm. Alrighty, well, I'm sure most of you dropped because of that. Looks like there's 5 of you now. Um, oh, the one thing I was going to ask is who commented on that? Oh, this David. Is this in fact true? Because I would really hope it would be. It may not be. That would explain some things. Uh, but man, I would hope that live streams count. Wonder if there's a way to figure that out. Because man, that would. Like I know I need to do more uploads, but like not having. Oops. Crap. Why does this browser hate me? I'm using Chrome and it just does not like me tonight. Didn't let me last Monday either. I'm not sure. Maybe there's an update that just. Tony says he stepped away. Yeah, Tony, the U-Ray encoder just stopped encoding video. Don't know why. All I did was go in and hit reboot, and then it magically worked. So got bit by that. That might be something to consider going forward, because if it's not going to be reliable, then I need to find a different way to encode video. But we did that SRT stream on that, and it worked fine. I don't know. It's weird. Can't explain that one. But basically, it stopped outputting video. I went into PF Sense, and there was no upload. Rebooted it, and all of a sudden, perfectly uploading. So it just decided to flake out, which is weird because we use those at work, and they've been working flawlessly to send video two different places for like a year now, like without any problem. One's SRT, one's RTMP. Both are flawless, have been for a year. So maybe it was a YouTube issue. I don't know. Either way, I think it's more that so few people watch. Yeah, no, that I would definitely agree with. Um, like I said, I've only had one stream that really was popular and got a lot of views. I probably should make that into an actual video, not a live stream. That would help the channel for sure. Um, yeah, I mean that's the thing is I'm sure like if I'm looking at my current stats, there's 7 viewers here. It's only got 23 views. The average duration is 21 minutes. So, I mean, great viewership numbers for me, but I could see why getting to 3,000 hours would definitely be a problem if this is all I'm getting, all we're getting in terms of so in a year, because it's a year, it's a year scale. So that 1-year-old stream is going to drop off, which will really hurt my view count probably, or my viewing hours. So got to figure that out. Got to do more uploads. Tony says, take a look at the KiloView encoder. Can you send me a link to that, the one that you have, Tony? I'd appreciate it. Because like the U-Ray, there's so many different ones. I'd hate to just get the wrong one unless there's only one. I've never looked into it, but let me know. So yeah, again, I thank you all. Thank you for bearing through the technical issues. I appreciate you all, and as far as I know, I'll be back here next Monday. So until then, thank you all, and have a good night.